Before we start the video this week, I just want to say thanks and cheers to everyone for your support. We crossed over 100 subscribers. It's largely all been word of mouth. And I've even had some of you reach out through our website, on LinkedIn, etc. And I've been able to have a conversation with you, help some of you land jobs in tech sales. So it's awesome. It's really great to see that we're providing value in the form of our YouTube content. And also, if you're interested in tech sales, we would appreciate a like and subscribe if you're new. And also check out our website if you're trying to break into tech sales for the first time. So really appreciate it. Thank you again. So the topic of this video this week is, can tech sales change your life? And the short answer is yes, but I want to break down a few key things. I've talked about it in a few other videos, but my past career, I was an engineer for 3 years. I've since switched over to tech sales and have drastically increased my income, which has been nice, I can't lie. But fundamentally on a day-to-day basis, my life hasn't necessarily changed. And a lot of that is because I'm very driven by financial security and the long-term financial upside of having a higher income and working in a career like sales. So let's start there. I think in my case, I switched over to sales when I was in my late 20s. I was very career driven when I first graduated college, and I still am to a large extent. But that being said, I think having kind of experienced a couple different engineering jobs that I really didn't enjoy and then switching over to sales, my attitude has definitely changed from just getting promoted at all costs and being the best employee, blah, 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 to, really focusing on the upside, really focusing on a job that fits my personality well. So I think what's been great about even the financial side, which yes, it's been nice, it's been lucrative, etc., is sales just fits my personality better. And I think, all that to say, if you're looking at tech sales, and I've mentioned this in the past as well, if all you're worried about is a dollar amount and that's about it, if you're strictly wanting money, you'll probably be a poor salesperson. And two, if all you're worried about is money and you finally get some and somehow happen to do really well if you're just solely money driven, I don't know that you're going to be fulfilled. And I can't speak for everyone. Some people may disagree, but I think the best thing about where I'm at now is when I went into sales, I definitely was motivated by the higher income potential, but I knew when it was realized, it wouldn't necessarily solve all my problems. My life wouldn't just be drastically better, and it's gotten better in many different ways that I didn't expect. So for instance, yes, I have a lot of extra money, but I've also invested that. I've been smart with it in terms of setting it aside to have financial freedom in the case of unexpected events. But having extra income has enabled me to pursue different business ventures as well as hobbies that have really expanded my life in ways that I didn't expect. So for instance, one thing that's kind of strange, I'm actually really into specialty coffee roasting. And that's a story in of itself. But the first commission check that I ever got, I spent on an industrial coffee roaster that I found from a cafe that was actually upgrading machines and was ready to get rid of their old one. And I've used that over the last 2 years, not only to start a small coffee business, I've made tons of different friends just by offering to host them and take them through fancy coffee and specialty coffee. And the reason I bring that up is, yes, it's kind of like this cool, flashy looking toy, but I really enjoy using it. It's not something to show off to others. Yes, it's fun to bring people here and talk them through it. But again, the extra income that I've made, and maybe it was the stage of life that I joined sales and life events that had happened to that point. But I never really had a desire to get super fancy cars or flashy things or clothes even to show off or think in some way, shape, or form that would make my life better. So that's been great. I think even now, I'm still pretty early into my sales career. I haven't even seen the long-term effects of making a substantial income numerous years in a row, when it comes to a decade and longer, which I'm looking forward to and still trying to live my life frugally enough to where I can reap those rewards. But that being said, and what we've talked about in other videos is, yes, it's going to change your life financially, but if the first thing your mind goes to is a brand new sports car, a nice house, and clothes, and you think that your life is just going to be drastically better with those things, it's not. It's not going to fix existing problems unless you're putting in work on yourself. And two, if you are strictly money driven in a sales role and all you want is money, I've seen it many times where if that's the case, you're probably not going to be that good at it. Or the flip side is you're going to be really good for a short burst of time. And then when you get that money and you realize that it doesn't fundamentally make your life that much better, unless you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your health, and you're taking care of the things that are most important to you, I don't know that it's a long-term strategy to just be solely focused on the money. I think what's almost been even more interesting than the financial side has been how it's impacted the way that I view the world, both from a business and personal relationship standpoint. For instance, I'm literally getting hung up on probably on a daily basis at this point when I'm making cold calls, and it really doesn't bother me. And I think what's interesting, I will say, is it's an important distinction. It doesn't bother me. But the flip side is like, and where I think every salesperson hits for a little bit, especially early in their career, is like nothing matters. Like, oh, they're just going to hang up anyway. And that's kind of like not a good place to be. You have to pull yourself out of that. But I will say, whether it's even, trying to meet new people, trying to network, out at the bar, meeting new friends, meeting new acquaintances, potential dating interests, etc. Like, getting rejected really doesn't faze me. And I think it's, you can chalk it up to common terms like a mindset of abundance or etc. But it's really just if you're well established in who you are, you're selling a good product. There are people who just genuinely can't buy. Like, yes, you may have a thing that solves all the problems, but due to politics, due to money, due to all these different things, like a company may just not be able to buy that. And I think even just taking that to my own personal relationships, whether it's networking with different people, whether it's trying to introduce myself to important people socially, in a professional context, etc. Sometimes it's just not going to work, and it may or may not have anything to do with you. If you're confident in what you're doing, you're confident in who you are, and you've put in a lot of work to get to where you are, you just can't let that bother you. And I think it's not that I'm like overly confident and that I'm ready to take on the world and like all that. It's more just like, hey, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm going to put myself in a position to do that and accomplish that at any given time. And I think that also ties into the financial aspect that I talked a little bit about earlier. Again, like, it's great if you're making a lot of money and more power to you. But at the same time, like, I'm using that in my case to give myself the flexibility and the freedom to make sure that I'm aligned with my long-term goals, both professionally and personally as well. And lastly, I would add from a business perspective, like, coming from that engineering background, I used to think that sales was a largely overrated skill. And there are certainly, some salespeople, just like in any profession, there's engineers that probably aren't that great. There's salespeople that aren't that great. But I think because of the public-facing nature of sales, really bad salespeople kind of ruin it for all the good ones. But I think I underplayed the importance of sales, and in two, I think, very important ways. Where one, as an engineer, it's like, oh, if it's a great product, like, engineers are going to find it and they're going to figure it out and use it. Salespeople don't even need to exist, and that's really not true. Particularly as you go to bigger organizations, there's tons of money involved, there's tons of politics involved, there's 5 different options to choose from, etc., etc. Having a really well-equipped and informed sales team is absolutely vital, and that's another video in of itself. But I will tell you, even on the small businesses that I've started here with Gucci, and also a small coffee business that I run, I underestimated the importance of sales as a function of the business because, again, I was in that engineer mindset where it's like, if you create it, they will come. And that's just not the case. Like, there is something to be said about a brand identity, but even more logistically, from an online presence. Both sales and marketing are very important. Knowing SEO, knowing a bunch of different things that are outside the scope of this video. You can have a great product, but candidly, if no one knows about it, or if you're not in front of the right people, if you don't have a bunch of different things aligned in a row, it's just not going to happen. And that's the really important piece that salespeople provide to an organization. So again, a quick recap, like, yes, tech sales can change your life. Financially, if you have an idea that having Jordans, a Mercedes, and a nice house is going to make your life better, it's not. Though the increased money, the increased financial upside is definitely a huge plus, and it can drastically improve your life if you're planning and using it the right way. 2, again, from a personal, from a business, from a networking standpoint, etc. What's been great about sales is learning that sometimes you can do everything you possibly can. You can have a great product, you can do everything right, you can communicate effectively, all these different things, and things still don't work out. And while that in the moment is like not a great feeling, when you apply that to your personal relationships, to your friendships, to your own personal career advancement, etc., you start to understand that things may or may not happen for reasons that are and are not in your control. And what that does is it reduces you down to make sure that you're always putting yourself in a position personally to have put your best foot forward, to make sure you're in a position to achieve your long-term goals. And you can have a healthy detachment from the outcome while still giving your best effort to making sure that happens and you achieve it. Lastly, from a business perspective, if you've had a desk job, maybe you're coming from that engineering or STEM background, etc., it's easy to underplay the importance of salespeople. And no doubt, if you don't have a great product, like, you're not going to build a great business. But being very articulate, understanding your product, to many things outside of the scope of this video, having a great sales team is an absolute essential for any type of business that you want to grow. Even if it's a tech company, even if it's something that is largely like a social media network, understanding some fundamental principles about sales is going to be a huge value for you as you grow your team. Maybe you even hire the talent and don't do it directly. It's an absolutely necessary skill that you have to have as your company, as your business, etc., just grows over time. So again, just want to say thanks to everyone for helping us cross over 100 subscribers. We're really glad you're finding value in the videos and appreciate your time. So we'll see you next week.